My name is Nathan Bridgewater, and if you'd asked me what the purest love in this world is, I would have said, the love between a father and his daughter. I spent 15 years raising my daughter Melody on my own. I was there for every milestone, every scraped knee, every heartbreak, every laugh. I was mother and father, protector and provider, her safe place. I used to imagine her wedding day when she was just a little girl. When she was 6, she once wrapped one of my white pillowcases around her shoulders like a veil and made me walk her down the hallway while she hummed the wedding march. She said, "Someday, Daddy, it'll be real. And you'll walk me for real." That memory lived in my heart like a promise. So the morning of her real wedding, I woke up before sunrise. I couldn't sleep, too excited, too proud. I stood in the mirror pressing my rented tuxedo again and again, even though it was already perfect. My hands were steady like they always were when I performed delicate surgery at my veterinary clinic. But inside, my heart was racing. On my dresser was a photo of Melody from when she was 9, sitting on my shoulders at the county fair, laughing with a gap in her front teeth. It had been 2 months after her mother, Diane, left. Melody had asked me if her mom left because she wasn't good enough. I held her face and told her she was the best thing in my life. She cried into my shirt for an hour that night. That memory returned to me as I picked up a small bouquet of white daisies, her favorite, and walked to the church. I thought I was about to live one of the happiest moments of my life. But when I opened the bridal suite door, Melody wasn't smiling. She wasn't glowing. She looked like she was about to break. "Dad?" Her voice trembled. "I need to tell you something. And you're not going to like it." I stepped closer to her, still holding the daisies, expecting maybe nerves, cold feet, something normal. But the way she looked at me, it was like she was bracing herself to hit me with something sharp. "Mom and Kenneth are here," she said quietly. I felt my chest tighten, but I forced myself to nod. "Okay." We knew she might come. "It's your wedding day, sweetheart. If having her here makes you happy, then—" She cut me off. "No, Dad. You're not listening." She swallowed hard. Her hands were shaking. I asked Kenneth to walk me down the aisle. For a moment, I swear the world went silent. No sound. No air. Just that sentence echoing in my head over and over again. I stared at her because surely I heard wrong. "Melody, what? What do you mean?" My voice sounded like someone else's. She stepped back from me, as if she was afraid of how I'd react. "He's been there for me these past few years. He's more of a real father figure now. He's paid for the wedding, helped me with my career, supported my future." Supported her future. I raised this girl. I held her when she was sick. I worked double shifts to pay for school trips. I stayed up nights helping her study for exams. I taught her to drive. I sat through heartbreaks, bad grades, scraped knees, lost friendships. And suddenly I was replaceable. "Melody," I said, barely getting the words out, "I've been here every day of your life since the day you were born. I gave you everything I had. How can you say someone else is your real father?" She looked me dead in the eyes, and what she said felt like being stabbed. "Maybe you were too much, Dad. Maybe you held on too tight. Kenneth doesn't smother me. He lets me be an adult. He doesn't control me. He doesn't make me feel guilty." I felt something inside me crack. Not break. Crack. Like something that wasn't going to be fixed with glue or time. "If that's what you want," I managed to say, voice shaking, "then I hope he does better in 2 hours than I did in 15 years. I walked out before she could see me fall apart. I didn't stay for the ceremony. I couldn't. My father, Chester, had been waiting just outside the bridal suite. He saw my face and that was enough. He didn't ask questions. He just guided me out of the church like I was the one who needed protecting now. We drove home in silence. The kind of silence that doesn't sit in the room, it sits in your chest. The road from the church to our house was the same road I drove Melody to school on for 12 years. I remembered her ponytail bouncing in the passenger seat, her singing off-key to every song that came on the radio. I remembered her telling me about her first crush, her first fight, her SAT score, her nursing school acceptance letter. Every memory on that road felt like someone picking up my heart and squeezing it a little tighter. About halfway home, Chester finally spoke. "That girl loves you," he said, his voice rough. "There's a reason for what she said. Even if we don't know it yet." I wish I could have believed him. But right then all I could feel was the truth I thought I was living. My daughter chose someone else. We pulled into the driveway at 9:15 a.m. The ceremony would be starting soon. I remember thinking, right now she's walking down the aisle. Without me. The house felt strange when we stepped inside. Quiet. Still. Too clean. Too empty. Like something was missing, and I already knew what it was. When I turned toward the front door, I saw it. A package on the doormat. No postage. No delivery label. Just my name written in Melody's handwriting. The same handwriting she used when she made me Father's Day cards in crayon. Chester looked at me. You want me to stay, son? I shook my head. No. I need to be alone. He hesitated, then squeezed my shoulder, the same way he used to when I was a kid and the world felt too big. Once he left, I locked the door, walked to the kitchen table and set the package down. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Inside was something I recognized immediately. Melody's childhood diary. And a note taped to the cover. Dad, read page 47 before you judge me. Then read the last entry. I'm sorry. I sat there for a long moment just staring at the cover. It was pink, worn at the corners with tiny embossed butterflies. I bought it for her when she turned 10. She used to carry it everywhere, writing in it on long car rides before bed during thunderstorms. I always told her she could tell me anything, but she told her diary everything. My hands weren't steady anymore. The small metal key was still taped inside the front cover. I slid it in, turned it, and the lock clicked open with a sound that felt much louder than it should have been in the quiet house. I flipped to page 47 just like she'd written. The entry was dated 3 years ago, right around when Diane reappeared. The handwriting was young, round, like she was trying to stay calm while her world was tipping sideways. March 15th. Mom came today. She brought her new husband, Kenneth. He said he wanted to start over. She cried and said she left because Dad threatened to take me from her. She showed me emails from lawyers. She said Dad was going to prove she was unstable because of her depression. She said he ruined her life. She said Dad only kept me because he didn't want her to be happy. Kenneth confirmed it. He said Dad manipulated everything. I blinked hard. No, that wasn't true. I remembered that time. Diane left without warning. She disappeared. I begged her to try counseling. I begged her to stay. I didn't hire a lawyer until she'd been gone 6 months. And even then, she was the one who signed away her parental rights, no court battle, no threats, nothing forced. But Melody didn't know that. She had been 8 when her mother walked out the door. She was still just a kid. And when Diane returned, she returned with stories and tears and a rich husband who could buy trust with dinners, gifts, and promises. My stomach twisted as I flipped through more pages. Entry after entry. Doubt. Confusion. Distance. It didn't happen overnight. They poisoned her slowly. Not with anger. With questions. Questions that broke her trust in me one drop at a time. I didn't even see it happening. I kept reading, each page feeling heavier than the last. The entries changed slowly, less innocent, more conflicted. I watched my daughter lose her footing one line at a time. He said Dad kept me from her. He said Dad didn't want me to know I had another life out there. He said Dad made sure she had nothing so she couldn't come back for me. None of it was real. But when you're young and the person who broke your heart comes back crying, you want to believe the pain meant something. You want to believe they came back because they love you, not because they're selfish. I felt sick. Then I read a line that made my breath stop. Kenneth says Dad is insecure. He says Dad needs to feel like a hero. He says Dad wants me to depend on him. He says real love doesn't keep someone small. I pressed my fist to my mouth and closed my eyes. Because the truth was, I did worry about losing her. Not because I wanted control, but because I knew what it felt like to be left. I was terrified the world would take her from me the way Diane had. And Kenneth? He used that fear like a weapon. Then I found the last entry, the one Melody told me to read. The handwriting was different. Sharper. Faster. As if she was racing against time. Dad, if you're reading this, it means today happened the way it needed to. I know I hurt you. But what you saw was not the truth. The truth is Kenneth has been controlling me. My heart slammed in my chest. I read every word. Last year, at a bachelorette trip, someone put something in my drink. I woke up with no memory. Kenneth was there. He had photos. He told me if I didn't play along, if I didn't choose him in public, he would ruin my life. He would ruin Blake. He would ruin you. My hands went cold. I wasn't replaced. I was being protected. My daughter broke my heart. To save me. I sat there, frozen, staring at the page. I had spent the entire morning believing my daughter didn't want me. Believing she had traded me in for a richer man, a shinier life, a bigger promise. But the truth was so much crueler. She had been carrying this nightmare alone. I turned the page and her handwriting became even more urgent, letters slanting, ink darker, like she was pressing hard to force the words into the paper. Dad, Kenneth said breaking your heart would be his victory. He said he wanted to see the look on your face when I told you he was my real father. He thought you would crumble. He wanted to watch it. He wanted to punish you for being the kind of man he can never be. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. I felt something dark rising inside me. Not sadness. Not grief. Anger. The kind of anger that's heavy and quiet. But Melody's next words stopped it from swallowing me. But I learned from you, Dad. I learned that love isn't loud. It's patient. It's steady. It protects. I didn't break your heart because I stopped loving you. I broke it because I knew you were strong enough to survive it. And I needed Kenneth to believe I had chosen him. I covered my face with my hands. I didn't cry. I just sat there, letting the truth rearrange the entire story in my head. She hadn't pushed me away because she didn't love me. She pushed me away because she knew I'd step between her and danger. She knew I would confront Kenneth, and that would give him exactly what he wanted, an excuse to destroy all of us. My daughter inherited my stubbornness, my fight, my loyalty, and she used it to build a strategy. The next part of her letter was the one that made my breath stop. Dad, I hired a private investigator. I got the hotel security footage. I recorded his threats. Tonight, after the ceremony, during the father-daughter dance, everyone will know the truth. I stopped breathing for a moment. She hadn't given up on me. She was saving me. Saving us both. I read the rest slowly, my eyes tracing every word like they were pieces of her I was holding in my hands. Blake knows. He's been helping me. He wanted to confront Kenneth himself, but I told him no. I needed to do this my way. The right way. The way you raised me to, patient, steady, without fear. Blake. That kid, quiet, respectful, the kind of man who listened more than he spoke. He'd come to my doorstep last year, hands shaking, asking permission to marry her. I remember thinking that if Melody chose him, she had inherited her good judgment from her mother's side. Now I knew better, she chose him because she saw a safe future. The same kind of safety I tried to give her. I continued reading. Kenneth kept digital copies of everything. Marcus is wiping his devices tonight. I needed Kenneth confident. I needed him to believe he won. That's why I had to hurt you today. If he saw even one crack in the act, one tear, one hesitation, it would be over. She trusted me to break. Because she trusted me to survive. My throat tightened and I didn't fight it anymore. I let myself feel it. All of it. The hurt. The love. The realization that the daughter I raised had grown into a woman who carried strength in quiet ways. But then I got to the last lines, the ones written at the bottom of the page where the ink was slightly smudged like tears had fallen on it. Dad, I need you to check your phone tonight at exactly 8 p.m. Ruby will send you something. When you see it, you'll understand everything. Please don't hate me for what I did today. I was trying to protect you the only way I knew how. And then, below that, one final sentence, small, shaky but clear. I love you, Daddy. I never stopped. The scotch glass beside me was still untouched. The daisies I brought her were still sitting on the table. The house was still quiet. But everything inside me had changed. She didn't abandon me. She didn't replace me. She sacrificed herself because I taught her love means protecting the person who protects you. At 8 p.m. my phone would ring. And the world would know who Kenneth really was. The clock felt louder than usual that day. Every tick echoed in the house, bouncing off walls that had once held laughter and birthday banners and science fair projects. Now it held waiting. I didn't move much. I couldn't. I just sat at the kitchen table, the diary still open in front of me, the note still taped to the cover. I must have read that last page a dozen times. Each time I found something new, a word, a tone, a piece of her I hadn't understood that morning. Outside the sun began to set. I imagined the reception, the music, the toasts, the photos. The life I thought I was supposed to be part of. Part of me wanted to get in my truck and drive back. Storm into that ballroom. Pull Melody into my arms and take her away from all of it. Make it stop. But that's what Kenneth wanted. He wanted me emotional. Reactive. Uncontrolled. Because a man who loses control, loses power. Melody knew that. She knew me. She trusted me to stay still, even while breaking. At 7:50 p.m. I finally stood. Walked to the sink. Splashed cold water on my face. Looked at myself in the mirror above the counter. I didn't see a broken father. I saw a man preparing. Preparing to understand. To listen. To show up. The way I always had. 7:58 p.m. My phone sat on the table. Screen black. Silent. I swear those last 2 minutes felt longer than the entire day. Then 8 p.m. exactly the phone buzzed. Ruby. A video message. My thumb hovered for half a second, the tiniest hesitation before I pressed play. The reception hall filled my screen. Guests seated at round tables. Soft lights. The microphone at the front of the room. And there she was. My daughter. In her wedding dress. Standing tall. Not broken. Not controlled. Not afraid. Her voice came through the speaker, steady, clear, stronger than I had ever heard it. Before the father-daughter dance, I need everyone to hear the truth. The room fell silent behind her. My heart stopped. She was doing it. Right there. In front of everyone. My little girl was about to burn the world down to save us. The camera shook a little, like Ruby's hands were trembling while she filmed, but the audio was clear. Melody stood at the center of the reception hall, holding the microphone with both hands. Her wedding dress shimmered under the lights. Not princess-like, not dramatic, just simple and elegant. She looked grown. More grown than I had ever seen her. Behind her, the large projection screen that had been scrolling through childhood photos suddenly changed to a black screen. The murmurs in the hall quieted. Melody took a breath. When I was 8 years old, she began, her voice steady, my mother left. And for a long time I didn't know why. I only knew that my father stayed. A few guests shifted, glancing toward Diane, who sat stiff and pale at a table near the front. My father, she continued, her voice gaining strength, made my breakfast every morning, drove me to school, taught me how to skate, held my hand when I cried, and never, not once, made me feel like I was missing something. Kenneth stood near the bar, arms crossed, face tightening. He still thought he was in control. He still believed the lie he engineered. Then Melody's voice changed. Sharpened. But 3 years ago, someone came into my life and tried to rewrite that story. Before she could even say his name, the screen behind her flicked to life. Text messages. Dozens of them. All from Kenneth. Threats. Manipulation. Demands. You do what I say. You don't want those pictures getting out. Your father will break. That's the point. A gasp rippled across the room. Some people stood. Melody didn't cry. She didn't tremble. She spoke like someone who had held her pain long enough. Last year I was drugged at a party. I woke up with no memory. And Kenneth used that moment to blackmail me. To control me. To force my choices. Including the one I made today. The room erupted in whispers, shock, disbelief, disgust. Kenneth stepped forward like he was going to speak, his face twisted with panic. But Blake was already there. Standing in front of Melody. Protecting her. The same way I would have. My breath caught. The next part was coming. The part where everything broke open. The room fell into a thick, heavy silence. The kind that comes right before a storm hits. Melody didn't step back when Kenneth moved. She didn't flinch. She just lifted her chin and nodded at the screen again. The next video clip appeared. Grainy security footage from a hotel hallway. Time-stamped. Authentic. Undeniable. Kenneth and another man, both clearly visible, holding Melody's unconscious body under the arms, half dragging, half carrying her through the hallway and into a room. Gasps, hands covering mouths, people standing, pushing back their chairs. Someone cried out. Someone else cursed under their breath. Diane looked like her whole face collapsed. Like every lie she had repeated to herself shattered right there in front of her. She reached for Kenneth, but he didn't look at her. He was too busy trying to understand how everything had slipped out of his hands. Melody continued speaking, voice steady, not dramatic, just true. This man has manipulated me for a year. He threatened to expose me, ruin my career, destroy my future, and hurt the father who raised me. He wanted to punish him because my father is everything he is not. Her voice didn't break. But mine would have. If I had been in that room, I don't know if I could have stayed standing. He thought he could make me choose him, she said softly. He thought he could replace my father with fear. Then she did something that will live in my memory longer than any pain that came before it. She placed her hand over her heart. But love isn't replaced. Not when it's real. Not when it was built through sacrifice. Through late nights. Through small moments. Through every single day my father chose me. Then she spoke the words that undid me. My real father has always been, and will always be, Nathan Bridgewater. The room erupted, not in chaos but applause. Loud, emotional, raw applause from everyone who had ever loved us or watched us grow. Kenneth tried to speak, to shout, to deny. But 2 police officers were already walking toward him. Firm, certain, prepared. Melody had already filed the report. She didn't just reveal the truth. She planned its justice. The officers reached Kenneth before he could take a single step toward Melody. One of them spoke quietly, but the microphone still picked up the words. Mr. Rutherford, you're under arrest for blackmail, sexual coercion, and conspiracy to commit assault. Kenneth's face twisted, all charm gone, all polished confidence dissolved. He shouted, cussed, tried to pull away, but the officers didn't flinch. They twisted his arms behind him and snapped the handcuffs into place. The room didn't move. No one tried to help him. No one stood up. Not even Diane. She sat there, shaking, her hands pressed to her mouth. She looked like she was trying to swallow the truth and drown in it at the same time. Kenneth locked eyes with Melody as they pulled him back. He looked furious, betrayed, desperate. But Melody didn't look away. She didn't show fear. She didn't show relief. She showed strength. The kind you only learn from surviving something that should have broken you. As they dragged Kenneth past her, she said one final sentence. "You don't get to control me anymore." And he knew it was over. The doors swung shut behind him. Silence filled the hall again, this time heavy with understanding, with grief, and with something else. Respect. Blake was the first to move. He didn't say anything. He just wrapped his arms around Melody, held her tightly while her composure finally cracked and she began to cry, not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, shaking breaths of relief. The DJ, unsure of what to do, stood frozen behind his equipment. It was Melody who pulled away gently and wiped her face. "There's one more thing I need to do," she said, voice rough but resolute. She turned toward the camera, the one Ruby was still holding, and I realized she wasn't talking to the guests anymore. She was talking to me. Her eyes were red and shining. Her smile was soft and shaking. "Dad," she whispered into the microphone, "if you're watching this, please come back. None of this means anything without you." My breath left me. She didn't want Kenneth. She didn't replace me. She was calling me home. And I was already reaching for my keys. I didn't even remember standing up. One moment I was staring at the phone, the next I was grabbing my jacket and rushing out the door. The sky outside had already gone dark, and the air was cold enough to bite, but it didn't matter. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel as I pulled out of the driveway. I must have broken every speed limit in the county, but I didn't care. My daughter had asked me to come back. And I was going. Chester was already on the porch when I arrived back at the house. Like he knew I would move the second I saw that video. He didn't ask questions. He just walked to his truck and opened the passenger door. "I'm coming with you," he said. No argument. There was none. The drive back felt different than the one earlier. That ride had been filled with silence and defeat. This one buzzed with adrenaline and something like hope, not the soft kind. The kind forged in fire. When we pulled into the reception hall's parking lot, there were people milling outside, talking in hushed voices, replaying the scene that had just unfolded inside. Some turned to look at me. Some smiled through tears. But I didn't stop. I walked straight through the doors. The room fell quiet again, not out of shock this time but recognition. Melody saw me first. She didn't hesitate. Didn't think. Didn't check to see who was watching. She ran. Wedding dress and all, she ran across the dance floor and crashed into me like she had when she was 5 years old and thought monsters lived in the closet. Her arms wrapped around me. Her head went into my chest. She was crying, but not the same tears from earlier. These tears were release. Relief. Homecoming. "I'm so sorry, Dad," she choked out. "I'm so sorry for today. I'm so sorry for what I had to do." I held her. Tight. Tighter than I probably should have. Like I was afraid she'd vanish again. "You don't apologize," I whispered into her hair. "You survived. You protected us both. I'm proud of you. I have always been proud of you." She pulled back just enough to look at me. Her eyes were shining. "Dance with me, Daddy?" And just like that, the world went quiet again. But this time, it felt right. The DJ must have understood immediately, because the lights in the hall softened and the opening notes of "I Loved Her First" drifted through the speakers. The same song I used to hum to her when she was little, when she'd stand on my feet and we'd sway together in the kitchen. The same song we had practiced for her wedding, before everything fell apart. I offered her my hand. She placed hers in mine. And we stepped onto the dance floor. Everyone around us seemed to fade away. There were no whispers, no phones, no stares, just a circle of quiet around the two of us. Her head rested against my chest, like it used to when thunderstorms scared her. And for the first time that day I let myself breathe. "I thought I would lose you," I murmured. "You never did," she said. "Not for 1 second. I just needed you to trust me, the way you always have." I closed my eyes. She had been fighting alone. Because she thought she had to protect me. Just like I always tried to protect her. "You shouldn't have had to carry that by yourself," I whispered. She shook her head. "You taught me to stand. You taught me to face things without running." Her voice trembled, but not from fear. "I didn't want to break your heart, Dad. But I knew you would stop him. You would have destroyed him. And then he would have destroyed us. I couldn't let that happen." I felt her words settle inside me, heavy but true. She didn't choose him over me. She chose the battle she could win. The song reached its softest verse and she lifted her head, her eyes glistening. "There's something else," she said quietly. "Something I wanted to tell you before everything got complicated." I leaned back just enough to see her face. She took my hand and placed it gently on her stomach. "I'm pregnant, Dad, 3 months. It's a boy." My breath caught. The room, the music, the world, all of it blurred. "We want to name him Nathan Chester Morrison," she said, her voice breaking. "After the 2 strongest men I know." I couldn't speak. I just held her closer. I don't remember much of the song after that, just the feeling of holding my daughter while the rest of the world softened into nothing. My father, Chester, stood near the edge of the dance floor. The moment Melody spoke our son's, my grandson's, name, his hand went to his mouth. His eyes filled, not with sadness this time, but with something I can only describe as pride held so tight it almost hurt to contain. He'd always said Melody had my spirit. Turns out she had his backbone too. When the music ended, people didn't clap. They didn't cheer. They just watched us, like they knew they were witnessing something sacred. Something broken that had just been put back together in the right shape. Blake stepped forward then, steady, respectful, like he knew this moment wasn't just between him and Melody but him and me too. He reached out his hand. "Mr. Bridgewater," he said, voice thick, "I would be honored to raise our son with the same love you raised Melody with." I didn't shake his hand. I pulled him into a hug. Tight. Firm. Like family. No one spoke for a while. No one needed to. Eventually the reception began again, but different. Softer. Warmer. People came up to Melody one by one. Some apologized. Some cried. Some simply touched her hand with quiet admiration. No one went near Diane. She slipped out the side door at some point, head down, moving like a ghost. I watched her go, but I didn't follow. That chapter had ended a long time ago. It took me too long to realize it. But Kenneth's chapter was ending now too. The police car drove away, lights flashing once before disappearing into the night. And with it went the shadow that had been hanging over my daughter for far too long. Later, when the crowd thinned and the music softened, Melody slipped her fingers through mine again. "Thank you for coming back," she said quietly. I shook my head. There was never a world where I wouldn't. She smiled, small and tired and real. For the first time all day, she looked like the little girl who used to hand me daisies and call me her hero. And maybe, she still did. We left the reception late that night, after most of the guests had gone home and the last song had faded into quiet. Melody walked on my arm not because she needed support but because we both wanted the contact. Something familiar, something steady. Blake trailed just a step behind, carrying her shoes in his hand because she'd kicked them off hours ago. Some things don't change. My daughter had never liked fancy shoes. Outside the air had cooled. The stars were out. Everything felt still, almost peaceful. Like the world had finally taken a breath after holding it too long. Chester was waiting by the truck. He didn't say anything either. He just opened his arms and Melody walked into them like she had as a child. He kissed the top of her head and whispered something I couldn't hear. It didn't matter what he said. What mattered was she leaned into it, trusted it, believed it. When we finally drove home, she rode with me. Blake followed behind. The road was the same one we had taken that morning, but I was not the same man. And she was not the same girl. When we reached the house, Melody hesitated on the front step. "I didn't ruin everything, did I?" she asked quietly. I turned toward her. "You saved us," I said. "Both of us. You did what I couldn't. And you shouldn't have had to, but you did. And you did it with strength." She closed her eyes and a tear rolled down her cheek. I brushed it away just like I did when she was small. "Listen to me," I said. "There is nothing you could ever do that would make me stop being your father. Not in this life. Not in any life." Her shoulders eased. The kind of easing that only happens when a weight that never belonged to you is finally put down. Months later, when her son was born, she placed him in my arms first. He was small, warm, blinking up at me like he knew me already. "Meet your grandpa," Melody whispered. "He's the bravest man you'll ever know." I looked at him and then at her, and understood something deeply. Real love is tested. Not by how easy it is, but by how much you're willing to break and still choose to stay. And we stayed. We survived. We healed. Together.